I am Donna Rosenbaum, and I'm with the Aullwood Historical Society. I too want to welcome you here. Couple quick announcements. Number one, next weekend, next Sunday afternoon, the Historical Society, along with Dayton History Carillon Park, is sponsoring the Wright at Home tour of the Wright House. Stephen Wright will be there. If you're at all interested in aviation history, I think tickets are still available to go and attend that. There will also be walking tours around the neighborhood, and you'll learn all the fascinating facts about people who live there, including someone who invented the propeller that the Wrights used, and Mr. Cheez-Its inventor, and a lot of other really fascinating people. So that's your announcement number one. Announcement number two, and I'm gonna steal your thunder a little bit. But next Friday and Saturday at Aullwood is their native plant sale. So if you haven't been there at all interested in native plants, it's a great place to go. We have very strong, healthy plants. It's good stock. So, all right, with that all said, Chris already told you, but this is the last of the spring series, the Far Hill Speakers series. And the Aullwood Historical Society wants to thank the Wright Memorial Public Library for their support in this series. We've had an outstanding turnout for all of the 3 lectures this year. And we hope to continue that strong partnership in the fall with the 3 lectures scheduled for the fall. So today, we are delighted, and a lot of you already know her, but we're welcoming Nenita Lapitan from Aullwood Audubon Society. Nenita is the senior manager for the center and the farm. And she is also responsible for overseeing Aullwood's conservation action strategy and implementation, including things like public programs, land management, farm organizations, facilities, and grounds. She's a busy lady, and on top of that, she also participates in many of the conservation organizations here in the Dayton area. So we are so grateful that she took time to put together this presentation and come to talk with us today. So today you're going to hear a little bit of history and a little bit of how we can help make history. We're going to talk about Marie Aull and the legacy that she left us here in Dayton. Talk about her love for native plants, and then Nenita's going to go ahead and talk about what we as Aullwood residents can do to help manage, save, increase the bird population. So without further ado, Nenita.
Thanks, Donna. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm going to stick this in here because I've got notes. This is a new presentation, so I don't have things memorized. Now, can you still hear me? Okay, awesome. All right, so I am so happy to be here, and special thanks to the library and the Aullwood Historical Society for inviting me to speak about Aullwood today. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And that lovely write-up about my presentation was amazing and a bit intimidating, Donna. No, it's okay. I could talk for an hour on any one of those topics. So I'm going to do my best to touch on each of them during our time together. And I just want to point out, it's spring and breeding season. And this is Audubon's symbol, the great egret, in all his glory and display. Those are his phyllo plumes, those yellow, those feathery feathers. And at one point, an ounce of those feathers was more than an ounce of gold, was worth more than an ounce of gold. So let's talk about our beginning. And I'm thinking there's probably some people in this audience who might know more about John and Marie than I do. However, I hope I may be able to share a few new facts or photos. So our story begins with Marie Sturwald. Marie's family was from Cincinnati, though her roots go back to Germany. And her parents were known for their gardens. And from a young age, Marie was constantly outside exploring them. She fostered a love of nature during her entire life. And while attending college at the University of Cincinnati, she took courses on botany, geology, and ornithology. She went on to become a librarian at one of the Cincinnati public schools. When she met John Aull in 1922, she was 25 years old. John purchased the property at 900 Aullwood Road as a weekend retreat. and he had an unimpeded view of the Stillwater River. After the devastating 1913 flood, John sold part of his property to the Miami Conservancy District that was needed for the construction of Englewood Dam. During the flood, he opened his property to residents in the town of Little York. This is where Meeker Road and Heathcliff Roads are off of North Main Street outside of Englewood, to set up a tent city until the flood waters receded. He also helped raise funds for the construction of the dam. John was nicknamed the Night Watchman, as he would check on the workers, monitoring the progress of their work, often in the evening. There were 2,000 workers employed by the newly formed Miami Conservancy District, making it the largest construction project in the world at that time. Marie and John were married in 1923 after meeting on a train trip to Alaska the year before. As the story goes, Marie had to run through the station to catch the train, and a large, handsome man reached down from the rear car and helped her and her luggage aboard. That's how she met John Aull. Evidently, they spent a great deal of time together on the train, and the two discovered a shared fondness for the outdoors and began courting each other after that fateful meeting. So this is a quote from John that I found when I did research at the Aull House with Elizabeth Langford, who's a horticulturist there. John wasn't sure of the relationship. He had been married and divorced before, and he was 31 years older than Marie. So he was 56 when they met. Nonetheless, he would travel from Dayton to Cincinnati to see Marie so frequently that then Governor Cox told John he'd have to build a new road to Cincinnati because John was wearing the road out. So the photo on the left shows the house in 1907, about a year after John purchased it and 150 acres of farmland. 10 years later, the house on the right has been updated with some of the features that we recognize today. In 1999, the house was added to the National Register for its significance in building and landscape architecture. Here's a young Marie next to the famous sycamore trees in her garden. And these are the trees where her ashes were spread after she passed. She was a member of the Garden Club of Dayton. I think there's at least one person from the Garden Club here. Anyone else? Okay, great. And she was active on the Conservation Committee. She was also a member of the Garden Club of America and served on their board. Marie's efforts focused on educating people on the importance of green space and preservation of wildflowers. Now, John continued to be very active in the Dayton community. He was a member of the Elks, the Engineers Club, the Bicycle Club of Dayton, and he helped found the Dayton Auto Club. He was personal friends with John Patterson, Charles Kettering, Colonel Edward Deeds, the Wright brothers, and Jimmy Doolittle. And this is a picture of John, Marie, and Marie's mother. They always had a dog with them, often a collie, and they just look so happy. As you know, Marie's garden is awash in flowers through most of the year, starting with the welcoming, bright flowers of winter aconite. That's a little yellow flower, not lesser celandine that's blooming now, and snowdrops. Next come the daffodils. Back in 1986, Marie stated she had more than 300,000 daffodils on her property, and she divided them every 3 years. In April, which is now, more than 1 million Virginia bluebells turned her gardens into a sea of blue. Anyone been to her gardens recently? Awesome. These are the descendants of the 100 plants the Aulls planted in 1928. Her gardens are on the preservation list of the Garden Conservancy, a national nonprofit dedicated to preserving some of the country's finest old gardens. This is also the pool that John liked to dip in. It's spring fed, so it's like 55. degrees. I think Marie tried it once and said, I'll stick to the, the bathroom. So Marie's gardens were inspired by Karl Krippendorf and Gertrude Jekyll. Marie was interested in creating a quote unquote oasis of beauty and not a botanical garden or a collection of cultivars. While Marie planted and loved many non-native flowers, including Lenten roses, lilacs, and peonies, and the lilacs are in bloom right now, and they're just amazing to walk through. She reintroduced and cultivated many native plants, including blue-eyed Mary, which was a favorite, and of course, Virginia bluebells. Other favorites included great white trillium and hepatica. For the past 12 years, every spring, Aullwood Audubon, Aullwood Garden Metro Park, and the Garden Club of Dayton come together for the big pull. We just had it last week, actually, where we work on removing invasive non-native plants from Marie's garden and Aullwood's property that is adjacent to it. By removing invasives, native wildflowers such as these that I've shown you are able to thrive in the woodlands around Marie's home and support early spring pollinators. So what is the big deal with native plants? Native plants are those that occur naturally in a particular region or habitat and have evolved to thrive under local conditions. So they can better handle Ohio's heat and humidity, as well as our frequent heavy rains and droughts. You know, everyone's seen the memes, right? One day we're in shorts, the next day we're in coats, the next day we're wearing flip-flops. Our plants, native plants can handle that. They're essential to the survival of many wildlife species. Native animals co-evolved with native plants for millennia. Over time, some wildlife species developed adaptations and preferences for specific plants, such as the monarch and milkweed, which is the only plant that monarch caterpillars will eat on. Native plants also support our native birds with fruit, seeds, nectar, shelter, and especially insect food. Native plants evolved as hosts for our specialized native insects. 90% of insects that eat plants can only eat the native plants with which they evolved. Researcher Doug Tallamy found that one chickadee family fed their babies 350 to 570 caterpillars every day. That's every day. A typical chickadee family will need to find 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to raise their brood successfully each season. So this is why we say, if you can, don't use pesticides in your yard so you can feed those little chickadee babies. If you're looking for native plants specific to our area, check out Audubon's Plants for Birds tool. Of course, everyone's welcome to take photos of these things. All native plants do well in the naturalized garden, whether sun, shade, moist, or dry. And with careful study, many can behave well in formal borders. Many native shrubs can be managed as a hedge or even a small tree. And I just put a couple plants up there that are well behaved. I have palm sedge in my garden. It's kind of mixed with natives and non-natives, and one horrible native that I need to remove, a shrub. And it's like this tall now, and it's creating this really cool landscape under the feeders. So it's hiding all the black oil sunflower seed, and the birds love it. And it grows in its cool season, like a lot of sedges, but it stays green all summer long, and it's just super attractive. Oak sedge is a shorter sedge that can actually be a lawn replacement. So that's kind of a neat thing. And of course, there's lots and lots of plants for informal and naturalized gardening that will support birds, butterflies, and a host of pollinators. I'll refer to it later, but we have a list of all the plants, more than 100 species that will be available at our native plant sale next weekend. And it's Friday and Saturday. And 50 of them are new for this year in terms of species. I do have one state listed. I have prairie brome, which is a grass that is a state listed in terms of being I think it's a threatened grass species in the state of Ohio, if you are interested in adding those sorts of things to your collections. And I have, I think, 5, 6 different milkweeds also available. So a variety of milkweeds for a variety of habitats, including wet and full sun. Got wetland plants. I have a ton of shrubs. 10,000 plants are going to be arriving at Aullwood tomorrow. So it's going to be an interesting day. So here's just a couple examples. The yellow plant on the left is one of my favorite. Anyone know what this is? What's that? It is. It's lance leaf coreopsis. And it's a very well-behaved plant. It is a short-lived perennial, but it will self-sow. And then you can enjoy those sunny flowers each year. Morris Reserve in Bellbrook has a really nice collection of lance leaf coreopsis throughout its prairie. That's one of the places that you can see a lot of that. And the other thing that's nice about it, it's not super tall. So some of the coreopsis are like taller than me, close to 8 feet tall, but this guy's maybe 12 inches, so very attractive, and I just love the yellow. On the other hand, asters, such as the sky blue aster here on the right, look weedy no matter what, right? There's no way to make an aster behave, but they bring this tremendous pop of color in the fall, and they're covered with pollinators, as they're often the last plants offering nectar during September and October. And I could talk for more than an hour on native plants alone, but we must move on. So I found this quote from Marie when I was there at her house doing research, and it really resonated with me. I mean, I've been with Aullwood for 21 years, and I do believe under the leadership of the past executive directors, Aullwood's focus has remained true to her original purpose for the 67 years that we've been here. After John's death, Marie was concerned about post-World War II boom in housing and shopping development. She reached out to the National Audubon Society about turning their home into a nature sanctuary. And John Baker, who was the president of Audubon, who was the gentleman in the suit next to the feeder, suggested that the land be turned into an education center instead. It would be the first of its kind in the Midwest. At that time, Audubon only had nature centers in Greenwich, Connecticut, and El Monte, California. The nature center was built where Marie and John's dairy barn was sited. Many of the posts and beams you see in the picture to the left on the upper floors were integrated into the nature center's construction and still can be seen today. So the picture on the right, that's what I remember growing up, coming to see when I was like in 3rd grade with Girl Scouts. So when I interviewed at Aullwood in 2002 and I saw the new building, I was like, oh, what happened? But that's the original building. It was the first of its kind of an environmental education center where people could experience hands-on discovery of the natural world. And we're still a place where students on a field trip may choose to touch a black rat snake, though not the same one on this picture. They live long, but not that long. George Antrim, who owned a farm adjoining the Aull's property, passed away in 1960. None of his family was interested in keeping the farm going. Marie was concerned that if the farm was developed, it would negatively impact the numerous springs on the Antrim farm that fed Wiles Creek and other waterways on her property. She purchased that farm in 1960 to preserve the land and allow children and families a place to experience farming firsthand. Paul Knoop joined the staff in 1959 as a teacher naturalist, and in spring of 1960 worked with Marie to create a tall grass prairie at Aullwood using seeds from original prairie remnants in Ohio. He became the director of the center in 1964 and held that post for 14 years. In 1994, Aullwood and the city of Dayton collaborated to create one of the largest tall grass prairies in the state and named it the Paul E. Knoop Jr. Prairie. And of course, some of you may know that we've had a little bit of tussle about the prairie, and we are committed to protecting the Wiles Creek watershed, which does begin in Knoop Prairie and runs through our nature sanctuary in the historic home of Marie Aull. We're, of course, closely monitoring that situation, and we appreciate having open channels of communication with all the interested parties. So stay tuned, but right now things are quiet. Some of you may have heard about the time that Marie broke her hip. I love this picture. I found this picture. I was like, she's got her feet in the fire, in their stove. On a Sunday afternoon, she lost footing while crossing Wiles Creek and was discovered by her assistant gardener at 7:30 the following morning. Asked by a friend how she spent the night, she famously replied that she enjoyed the stars and the moon. This event happened in 1986 when Marie was 90 years old. Marie and John did not have any children. She dedicated her life to educating people all around her on the importance of safeguarding the earth. Marie is known as the godmother of the Miami Valley environmental movement, and her 105-year life touched an incredible 3 centuries in our community. And you can see all the ways that she impacted Aullwood, the Garden Club, and 5 Rivers over the years. In addition, she also supported Hospice of Dayton, Boy and Girl Scouts of America, Daybreak, the Humane Society of Greater Dayton, Red Cross, Good Samaritan Hospital, the United Way of Dayton, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Greater Dayton, Children's Medical Center, St. Joseph Residential Treatment Center, the Beaver Creek Wetlands, and the Dayton Arts Community. So, wow, I'm just running through this. Let's switch gears and look to the future. What is Aullwood doing and where are we going? And I guess maybe, Chris, are there any questions in the chat? We could, okay. And does anyone, let's stop for a minute and let's just, anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Can you go back to the picture of him on the horse at the very beginning?
Yeah.
The first picture.
It was, yeah, it was at the very beginning. Let me just, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm interested in knowing the name of the man in the background of the horse.
Oh, I don't know, but I can find out from, I mean, it's possible Elizabeth might know. Do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay. I don't know, and I don't know exactly where this was taken, though I think this was actually on his property. I do know that that is one of their collie dogs. And I've got to look at the back of the picture to see what it says, but I don't believe it identifies that gentleman back there. Yes. Yeah. Sure, absolutely. And this is a quote from Marie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any questions so far? Anything in the chat?
No, everybody's quiet in the chat.
Okay. Oh, yes.
With the native plants, you had mentioned that I think it was sedge.
Yeah.
I don't know what sedge is that the ground covering? Is that what you meant by wild?
Oh, well, yes. So sedges, we always say sedges have edges because if you run your fingers up them, they can be a little sharp. They are different from grasses in terms of species. Many of them are considered to be cool growing, so that they do their most active growing in the spring and the fall. They also have these really interesting blooms that look really spiky. Like I have some in my woodland wetland area that are blooming right now, and they look like little tussocks. They can be easily divided like any kind of perennial. Some are tall, some are short. And the oak sedge that I referred to is one that is shorter that can be used as a lawn replacement. Yeah, and it can actually handle foot traffic. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just a comment, there are two sedges out in the library itself has two native plant gardens. One is a shade garden on the north side, on the Aberdeen side, there's a native plant shade garden, and there's a gray sedge and a rosy sedge. And then there's also the sun garden with a lot of native plants.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is Tom Hisson or Charity still involved with Aullwood?
Well, both of them have retired. Tom is, I mean, neither of them are formally, though. I mean, Charity was here in Dayton several months ago and stopped in, and I saw her. And Tom is in pretty frequently. So I know that he is doing work for Miami County Parks. And he's also leading birding field trips. Yeah, yeah. And he is an amazing bird photographer. So if you don't follow Tom on Facebook, you should, yeah, he is an amazing birder for sure. Anything else? Okay. Well, we're going off to the future now. I actually remember meeting Marie. I didn't know who she was until much later when I was a young person in elementary. She would often walk Aullwood around, and I just knew that this was, this lady, old lady, when you're in third or fourth grade, everybody's incredibly ancient, right? Who seemed to know lots of cool nature stuff. And that made a huge impression on me. So there's many of us that work at Aullwood that have actually childhood memories of it ourselves. I'm not the only one. Chris Rowlands, who is our program manager for environmental arts, came to Aullwood when he was little. We have some that actually grew up going to Summer Earth Adventures Camp and that sort of thing. So it's kind of cool to see that generational influence of Aullwood, that people wanted to come. It meant so much to them, they wanted to come and work for Aullwood. All right, so another great egret. All right, so Aullwood today. This is what the center and the farm look like now. Aullwood and the Friends of Aullwood Board of Trustees raised money to expand the original nature center to accommodate even more visitors and programs. The expanded building offers 2 discovery rooms, 6 classrooms, the hallway of wonder, a bird watching room, of course, the window on wildlife room, a fantastic nature store, auditorium, and offices. The building was named the Marie Aull Education Center in her honor, and Marie was there to see the new building completed in 2000. 14 years later, Executive Director Charity Kruger and the Friends of Aullwood again raised money to build an educational center on the farm side of the property. This Gold LEED certified building, named after Charity, also houses the only Head Start preschool in the United States that's located on a working farm. So here in Dayton, that's the Miami Valley Child Development Center. And they have 2 classes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. One of our educators does programming with them twice a month. And our Peter Evans, who is our senior associate on the farm, does farm chores with them. So they help feed animals, they collect eggs, and they have a great time. Member and visitor engagement is the heart of Marie's legacy. We offer programs for littles and bigs. Thousands of school children come for experiential outdoor field trips. Hundreds more participate in our summer day camps, and more than 80,000 visitors come to Aullwood to experience nature, farming, seabirds, wildflowers, fairy houses, and the trolls. Since we installed the Thomas Dambo, the troll that hatched an egg exhibit 2.5 years ago, our admission numbers have jumped 700%. So if you remember Aullwood and then you've come post-troll, it could be a little bit of a shock. I was talking to our guest services manager yesterday afternoon, and she told me that 300 people had been there, which is very different from the earlier days, what we call pre-troll days, where maybe 20, 50 people might come in. So it's very exciting. We are, opening nature and birds and whatever else people discover at Aullwood to a whole new audience of the general public. And they come from everywhere. We have had people from India, England, all over the world come to see these very interesting creations. It's hard to measure the impact of a visit to us, though we have seen that through hands-on experiences at Aullwood, people will grow to love nature and take action to protect it. Whether it's going to college to become an environmental educator or scientist, volunteering for or donating to an environmental education organization, or communicating with politicians about legislation to protect the environment. And we continue to nurture and manage the diverse habitats within our 200-acre nature sanctuary, so that guests can continue to see the birds and flowers they enjoy for years to come. And here's what we do best: getting kids outside, playing in the water, exploring prairie and forest, walking in the creek, discovering critters, and getting wet and dirty. And so these photos were taken from our summer camp, our summer day camp. So we offer, and it's not too late to sign up. We offer all day summer camp with the early drop off and late pickup. We have lots of scholarships. So we have a special grant through the Ohio Department of Education. So if you know someone who wants to send their kid to a outdoor summer camp for a week, they should contact us. It's very easy to ask for a scholarship, and I have lots of them. So I won't turn anyone down. Our livestock ambassadors play an important part in educating children and families about farming life. Many of the animals that live at our farm are on the Livestock Conservancy's rare and endangered breed lists. Heritage farm animals offer traits that may be needed for future farms, including having robust health, strong mothering instincts, being excellent foragers, and having the ability to thrive in a changing climate. Heritage breeds are animals well suited to sustainable grass-based systems, which give some small farms a competitive edge. We see exciting possibilities in building collaborative relationships with farmers and landowners through modeling regenerative, I can never say this word, regenerative, you know what I mean, farming practices that also support grassland birds. Regen, that's what I always say. Regen farming. Oh, it's easy. That's actually a little style, and it's really easy for that goat to stick his little head in there. Many of the animals are very, very friendly and love to be petted, including our very large now young Ayrshire calf, who is not quite a year old. And he's a little enthusiastic for some people, but he's very very friendly for humans. He was unfortunately orphaned, and so he's got a adoptive mom, named Gemma. And, but he's very used to humans and he thinks they're all here to play with him. Reads is a unique 10-week after-school program that pairs a caring mentor with an elementary student. Third and fourth graders have outdoor experiences and improve their reading and writing skills to help them pass the fourth grade proficiency tests. Right now, we're currently collaborating with Northridge Elementary, which is the elementary and neighborhood that was hardest hit by the Memorial Day tornadoes, as well as Trotwood Madison school districts. And so a typical afternoon is that the students arrive and we're able to pay for transportation to Aullwood. We have a staff person who coordinates the program. Most of the mentors are volunteers. Some of them have been doing it for more than 20 years. This is truly the program that that reflects Aullwood's mission. I was a mentor myself, and there's always a party at the end. And even though I'm not a mentor anymore, I still cry at the end because the kids are just so awesome. And again, this is another program that's currently being funded by the Ohio Department of Education. So we're able to provide kids 5 books that they can take home so they can start their own library. They get a pizza party. They get a t-shirt. They get to keep a notebook with all their worksheets and the journaling and the art that they've created. They get to have outdoor experiences in a very small group. So it's, they learn a lot. Kids learn better in small groups, and they have a chance to ask a lot of questions here. They're collecting insects in the prairie for identification, and each week is a different theme. So they can meet a bird of prey, they can meet a snake, they can meet the farm animals, they learn about farm foods and gardening, wetlands. And there's a guest speaker that comes in every week that's usually one of our environmental education staff. So I feel very passionate about this. This is a program that was modeled after Bob Taft's Reads program. When he wanted to start, he understood that students were struggling reading about 22 years ago. And so it was started in that effort, and it's been a long stay. It's one of our longest environmental education programs. Nature can be an inspiration for the creation of art and music, and they're natural partners with environmental education. Chris Rollins, program manager for environmental arts, takes his skills and talents into local schools to create large murals and write music with students. Using songs, puppets, and humor, Chris teaches students about farm life, plants and photosynthesis, and animal behavior. Has anyone seen a Chris Rollins show? No? Oh, you have to see. Okay. He brings a lot of energy, a lot of humor. A lot of it is audience participation. And he sings about everything from beavers to bears waking up after hibernation and their farts. And to, insects, which is fun. That's one of my, it's called Bugs. That's one of my favorite one. He has one about the ram and one about cows. Any kind of animal you can think of, he's got a song. He's got one about peacocks. He also has some very emotional songs. He wrote a beautiful song about the passenger pigeon. So if you get a chance to see Chris, don't hesitate. He's a lot of fun. And as I alluded to, we also have a variety of special events and festivals throughout the year to help raise money for our public programs, as well as to provide educational opportunities and increase memberships. So 2 upcoming events are the native plant sale pictured here. That was last year, I think. Offering more than 10,000 plants with 100 different species, and check out our website to look at the catalog. It is in person only. So if you have your heart set on something in particular, I recommend you come early. We do have a lot of woodland wildflowers, but they're limited quantities. So look at the catalog and you can see everything we have, but I do have squirrel corn this year. Yeah. And then next month, we're excited to host Aullwood Spring Fest. which features many free activities for families, including a demonstration by the Ohio School of Falconry, opportunities to see and touch animals, the chance to help co-create a mural with Chris Rowland. So we're going to create this huge mural about grassland birds, and everyone who comes to the festival can help paint that. And a large children's activity area, pond studies, wagon rides, and more. Only $20 a carload. Conservation centers such as Aullwood are the doorways for us to engage and educate the community on how to protect birds and the places they live. Since 1970, 3 billion North American birds have been lost. Just have to wait for a minute because that's just stunning. Birds need clean air, clean water, and a safe place to rest and raise their young. And people need these very same things. Attempting to bend the bird curve. So that's what, when you hear this, remember when people look at bird populations or populations of animals in general, it's usually on an XY axis with a curve. So we're wanting to bend it up, means that we're working to halt and ultimately reverse the decline of birds across the Americas. This work requires us to work efficiently across habitats and national borders, with partners and governments and local communities sharing the same resources as their local birds. Audubon has some audacious goals in trying to bend the bird curve. Birds migrate north and south, so we need to do work across the Americas. And I know this slide's a little hard, but you can see we are working in both hemispheres. Audubon has identified a total of 3.7 billion acres across the hemisphere. Those are the acreage that's highlighted in blue and green, representing key ecoregions in which we will focus efforts to help birds. These are distributed across forests, grasslands, arid lands, and tundra, wetlands and coastal, marine, and urban areas. The green is where we're working now. The blue is where we want to work. And Ohio is right in the middle of all that blue. If you want to learn more about Audubon's flight plan, you can look at this very huge document. It's on Audubon's website. That's noted there at the bottom, and it's called Flight Plan. That's our new strategic plan for the next 5 years. I want to share this really cool tool with you. It's called the Bird Migration Explorer. The bird in this picture is an Arctic tern, which weighs a mere 3.5 ounces. That's like a deck of cards, right? It has the longest migration route of any animal. Arctic terns migrate from the Arctic Circle to Antarctica, a round trip journey of about 18,641 miles every year. You can track this bird and more than 450 other bird species as they make their heroic journeys and see the challenges they face along the way on Audubon's Bird Migration Explorer. It's really cool. I was fooling around with it yesterday. So you can look at warblers, you can go look at hummingbirds, which are actually starting to arrive here. Any kind of birds you want to see, and you can see how they are moving. You can learn more about a particular species, the migratory birds at a specific location, or a conservation challenge that birds face. And the links noted above, or just Google Audubon Bird Migration Explorer. This is an incredible tool that is based on Audubon's science work that they do, and it ties with eBird. If any of you are birders and know what eBird is, that's how you can put your birds that you've seen into a large database, or if anyone does Project Feeder Watch, it all kind of starts tying together. So speaking of migrants and those that will be returning to Ohio, one of my favorites, the scarlet tanager is a neotropical bird species that nests and raises its young in Ohio. You can see this bird in Aullwood. The riparian corridors in central and southwest Ohio provide some of the most important habitat for birds in our state. not only breeding and wintering grounds, but the plethora of new tracking data emerging and showcased in the Bird Migration Explorer show that many species utilize these waterway adjacent forests, grasslands, and wetlands during their migration north and south every year. Aullwood's location along the Stillwater River and Wiles Creek provides us a great opportunity to engage people in their restoration and protection. Some other birds are the wood thrush, the rusty blackbird, yellow-billed cuckoo, and many of the warblers that get a lot of birders excited at this time of year. And they're all good examples of these migratory land birds utilizing Ohio's riverland corridors. Can you see the bird in this picture? In our Great Lakes region and hemispherically, along with migratory land birds, Audubon has also prioritized declining populations of breeding marsh birds, like the least bittern, king rail, black rail, and the American bittern that's doing its bittern thing. Can you guys see it? It's, yeah. They are very cryptic, and the Virginia rail, which serve as great indicators of wetland health. And this is what we're excited about. Grassland birds, well, we're not excited about this first fact. Grassland birds remain the fastest declining suite of species in North America and are heavily influenced by the changes in agricultural landscape. Here's where we're excited. Ohio has a significant opportunities to support the recovery of these eastern grassland birds like Henslow sparrow, the eastern meadowlark, and the bobolink, which is pictured here. One of my favorite migratory grassland birds. We always used to say, it looks like the male's got a little shower cap on. You can see these birds at Huffman Prairie. Huffman Prairie is an awesome, awesome place to see grassland birds. Okay, so what can you do to help birds? There's lots of things. So you can pick a suite. Pick the things that are the easiest for you that make the most sense. A couple things I do want to make comments on. So bird strikes. A lot of people say, my bird hit the window and it flew away and it's okay. That would be like you hitting your windshield of your car and thinking that you're going to be okay after you've collided with another car. Unfortunately, the majority of birds that do hit windows and fly away often have some kind of trauma to their head, neck, or body where they don't survive. So if you're able to get that bird in a dark box and get it to a place like Bruckner Nature Center, which are licensed rehabbers, that bird has a better chance of survival. Up to 1 billion birds die each year in the United States due to collisions with windows. And research shows that 54 to 76% of window collisions are fatal. There are a lot of different things you can do. Putting stickers is not one of them unless they're all those little dots that cover them. I live in Sugar Creek Township on about 3 acres that has a lot of mature trees and woodland. And we were having bird strikes a lot, and many of them were fatal. And it was like, my heart was hurting really bad. So I did some research, and we ultimately chose to put up these things called the Acopian bird savers. I didn't put the link up over here because I don't want to endorse a particular thing. It's something very easy. It's inexpensive to do. They look like little Zen curtains. And if you've ever been to Aullwood, we actually have some up in our bird watching room, and it has deterred bird strikes. The problem is the birds see the reflection in the glass and they see the reflection of the trees. So they think they can just fly into that. The bird savers break that reflection. I've only had one fatality this year, and that's when a Cooper's hawk deliberately flushed a mourning dove into the window to kill it, and then it took it away. But I haven't, in a year now, I haven't had any where we were having at least 1 or 2 every month. And then I'm a cat owner. I'm also a dog owner. If we can be responsible cat owners, because outdoor cats, whether they're our domesticated pets or feral cats, kill approximately 2.4 billion birds every year. So think about training your cats to leashes, getting catios, or other things. There are things that we can do for cats to deter them. Drink bird-friendly coffee. A lot of the habitat down in coffee countries can be managed to be more bird-friendly, and there's often something on the coffee that says it's bird certified. I know Winans, a local coffee maker, does have bird-friendly coffee. And then, does anyone participate in community science projects like Feeder Watch? Has anyone ever heard of those? Some nods. So this is a really cool thing. These are people all around the country from November to April. So it's just ending now. You count birds for science. It all gets into this huge database. And so you look for the warmth of your home during these cold winter months. You look at feeders. You don't even have to have a feeder. I mean, you can actually do feeder watch on a walk if you want to do that. And all this information is downloaded into this huge database at Cornell Lab of Ornithology in New York. And it tells scientists what birds are being seen when and where. So like, for instance, I had a catbird appear this week at our feeder, which is a migratory bird. So that's super exciting. So along with everyone in North America, because the Project Feeder Watch actually goes up into Canada as well, they can see what birds, how many and when, how are they moving. What's really interesting about migration and climate, it was actually the duck hunters, I think, who kind of sounded the alarm that birds weren't moving as much due to climate. Why was that? Because the people who like to hunt ducks down south weren't seeing the ducks. They were staying up north because the water was open. And so it's from participatory science programs like this that scientists can learn about what is affecting bird movement. It's not necessarily a good thing that birds are not coming down or they're staying here longer than what they need to be, because some of them need to go up. They've evolved in those habitats to raise their young. I mean, I have a white-crowned sparrow still hanging around in my yard. It's really late. This is probably the latest I've had one in my count area. And this is a bird that breeds up in Alaska. So and further north up into Canada. So I'm most concerned when birds aren't going to where they need to go. All the juncos have left, so that was good. Okay, so here's me. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free. Email is probably the fastest way to get rather than my phone. And are there any questions? Yes. So just again, like any kind of agricultural, activity, some things can be done to help birds and other animals, and some processes can harm them. And so actually, can I get on here and Google something? Or actually, let me get my thing. Let me get on my phone.
What would you like me to Google?
Hang on. What did I do? Can you Google bird-friendly coffee for me?
Yeah. Isn't the way it's grown?
It's the way it's grown. It's actually the way it's grown and the way the land is managed to allow birds. For instance, when we talk about regen farming, one of the things we're very interested in is when are we mowing, right? Grassland birds nest on the ground. I mean, and so can we delay mowing to allow them to raise their young? Can we graze cattle on land for birds simultaneously? So Audubon has a new program. It's called the Conservation Ranching Program. And ranches out west can actually be certified as bird-friendly ranches, and their beef can be sold with a label that says bird-friendly beef, right? It's so hot, Audubon can't keep up with it. All these ranchers want it. But it means you have to manage the land differently. we're really excited because the grassland ecologist from Wisconsin is coming down at the end of this month to meet with us. He's got his own ranch up in Wisconsin, and he's responsible for certifying all the ranches in the state. And he's gonna help us understand how we can manage some of the grasslands at the farm, which are in conservation easement, which means we can't grow crops on them or graze animals on them. But how can we manage that and the pastures we can graze animals on to be more friendly for things like the eastern meadowlark, Henslow sparrow, and some other sparrows that like song sparrow, song sparrow, indigo bunting, all these migratory birds that like these open areas for their habitat. So how can we manage that? And same thing with bird-friendly coffee. How can these farms, these coffee farms, manage how they grow and harvest the coffee to be more friendly with to the birds that live there?
So according to the Audubon Society's webpage, if you cannot afford the option of the bird-friendly label, you can still buy bees that are certified shade grown, which are stamped with seals such as Rainforest Alliance certified or bird friendly. Both certification, I cannot speak today either. Both certifications, yeah, required farmers to maintain or restore some level of canopy cover, a proxy for forest life, and prohibit harmful pesticides which limit prey for birds. So actually, if you go over.
I think Green Mountain Coffee is one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, you can
you're
look up-
correct, yeah.
There's, if you look up bird-friendly coffee brands, there are, ones that are listed. This is through the Smithsonian. They have different ones, find retailers, like you can find retailers near you, where to buy them online. But, yes, they have some listed. And Dorothy Lane popped up. I'm not quite sure which ones Dorothy Lane has, but.
You can look at the little labels and it is, yeah, all that coffee is definitely labeled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it just begs the question of what other crops are not bird friendly. That's the evidence behind coffee.
Well, yes, I mean, in making agriculture bird friendly is a challenge for sure. I mean, not just in South America or, tropical countries, but here in the United States. I mean, just the fact that we have monocultures, large cornfields and soy fields, that's not bird friendly. But there is an interest in that, in creating those. And so there's definitely a niche. And I mean, I think we have to look, I mean, for some people, it's like, I only eat meat that's grass-fed, right? So some people only want grass-fed meat because they perceive it may have health, it might be healthier. It may be raised in a more humane way. So there's many choices. Bird-friendly coffee is like, that was one of the easiest ones. One of the new things that we're looking at is sugar bush bird-friendly guidelines. So a sugar bush is a place where you make maple syrup, right? And most of those forests are managed a certain way to have the most or the most number of sugar maple trees, right? Which is the tree that has the sap with the highest sugar content in it. So there's interest in the from Ohio State University on helping to create guidelines here in Ohio for sugar bushes that can be managed to be more friendly for birds. What does that look like yet? I don't know. But we have our own sugar bush at Aullwood. We've made maple syrup for years and years. We're not currently doing it because it's pretty time consuming. I mean, I don't know how many people want to sit in a sugar house for 8 hours, boiling out sap. But we're interested in, possibly being a pilot for, creating guidelines for that and working with Ohio State on that. But you're right, anything we look at, I mean, birds are everywhere, right? So that's the question. I guess that's like job security, right? For sure. Great question. Yeah.
We do what we can to attract and keep healthy birds in our. How do you discourage cats from wandering into the yard?
Oh, this is a really hard, very controversial topic on that's really hard.
You know, coyote urine crystals, we have tried them.
Yes. Well, you have a new puppy now,
Yes.
so that could be somewhat of a deterrent. Cats are really a really controversial subject, so I'm gonna
Okay, because we have a cat.
yeah, and I have a cat too, and she's primarily outdoor because she's incredibly old, and we've tried to get her to be indoor cat, and that has not worked well at all, you know. So I'm just waiting for her to get to a certain age and, you know, and hopefully that she doesn't interact with any of the wildlife, because we have fox, great horned owl, and coyote on our property. So, and she was there before I moved in the house. But it's really hard. So, I mean, the things I do, I make sure that our outdoor cat is fed, you know, well, but that doesn't do anything with the instinct to kill. I have belled her, but that isn't always necessarily helpful for the cat, because then she becomes prey for the predators out there. My partner said he saw something that we could put around her neck that could potentially deter birds, but I haven't looked it up. He said, I found something that might work. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll talk about that later. Are these feral cats or your own cat?
These are neighbors' cats.
Neighbors' cats. You know, talk to your neighbor. I mean, I hear,
Doesn't work.
yeah, I know.
One of the things you could do that we always recommended at the food store was sweet gum.
Oh, the sweet gum balls.
The sweet gum balls, if you have feeders, if you put the sweet gum balls under the feeders, the cats do not like to step on them, and it really helps the birds get away quicker when they see a cat.
And why it has a sweet gum tree, so I'll just talk about it.
Yeah,
You know, but you could just walk
Yeah,
around
yeah.
and collect it, but that seems to be a very natural way to try to do it.
yes. And then the other thing is, while we're, you know, wanting to create habitat with birds, watch where we put our pole feeders, especially, so that it doesn't give a chance for a cat to be able to sit and wait for the bird on the ground. I have a lot of ground feeding birds. I love sparrows. A lot of people call them LBBs, little brown birds, because they're like, oh, can you tell them apart? But I love the sparrows, and the majority of them are ground feeding birds. So I make sure when I strew seed on the ground that it's in a wide open spot, so that the cat is highly visible to the birds. Yeah. Yeah, great question. I love the thing about the sweet gum. I'm gonna do that. I had not heard of that one before. See, this is great.
I have a question about organic pesticides for your lawn. Is there any difference?
I would say no. I mean, I think organic and pesticide just kind of is an oxymoron to me.
Well, I mean, I have a long quilt, but I'm very rare and in our yard stand out. And even if you put a sign that says, don't mind the weed for feeding the bees, you know, we've gotten some comments from people because we have lots of dandelions. And
Yes.
and all that.
Yes.
And so people around us have said, well, we do the organic lawn care, is what they call it. So they just say, you can do it that way. So I don't, but I was just curious.
We don't use any herbicides or pesticides on our yard. But I don't live in a area where I say the cult of the lawn is strong. And pressure's hard. I acknowledge that. The one thing I say about any kind of chemical is that, one, the soil's alive. And if we put stuff on there, it's gonna kill that, so it's gonna actually harm the environment still, no matter what. Even lots of pyrethrum, which is natural, right, is not good. And then the other thing is that it still gets in the waterways, and it can, even organic pesticides and herbicides can still harm all the little critters and everything in the food web. So, I mean, organic now to me is a marketing tool. And a lot of people don't have the time to really delve into what are all these chemicals and what they really do. And it's real easy to say I use organic stuff, but if you spend some time looking at the actual impact on the environment, I think we would be kind of horrified to still see. So we don't. I mean, I will say that Aullwood does use Roundup, but in a very controlled way. We paint it on stumps. We don't currently do any foliar spraying. We have a lot of bush honeysuckle on our property. It's been neglected for the last 7 years because we haven't had a strong land management program. And so we had over 300 trees coming into that prairie, not the one that is named after Paul, but the one he helped create with Marie on the property, which is one of the largest remnant prairies in existence in this area. Because we hadn't been able to do any land management, succession happens, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. So it's like, look at all the space. I'm just going to grow all these trees in here. So in order for us to make it back a prairie, our staff took out 300 trees. Most of them were young saplings, but they're going to grow fast because those are pioneer trees, right? So that's their whole thing, is to fill up fast. And we treated all those stumps with Roundup, but it was painted on dyed blue so we could see it, and very careful. But when you're talking about managing large tracts of land, sometimes you have to use the herbicide. I don't like it, and we're very, very careful with it, but lawns are hard for sure. Yeah, and the pressure's hard in the suburbs. I know. I lived in Central for a long time, so yeah.
That makes me think about, you mentioned you had the lesser celandine up there as a problem. How are you?
Oh my gosh, here's what I tell the kids. If you can figure out the biological weapon that will kill lesser celandine, but leave everything else alone, you're going to be a billionaire. I kid you not. Lesser celandine, I think it's worse than garlic mustard. There's not much. I mean, it's horrible. It just smothers everything. And it's little bulblets. It's like goutweed. Are you guys familiar with goutweed? All you need is like a root that big, and the whole thing springs back. It's got little bulblets. There's been experiments with it. I know that Elizabeth Langford at Marie's house has been doing experiments with walnut oil, which is very expensive. And seeing some results in killing that. She's got kind of some concoction that she's doing test pilots on. We have not successfully done it. And unfortunately, when you step on it, you know, the treads in your shoes pick up the seeds and then carry it. And a lot of, it also gets in deer hooves. And so when deer walk on it, they pass it along. That's why all of a sudden you see it spreading. If you can get it out early, you have a chance, but once it starts to spread, it's really hard. If you ever drive down by the Little Miami River between like Xenia and Bellbrook, it is just coated with lesser celandine. I don't have the answer for that, but I always tell the kids, let me know if you come up with the solution, because there'll be so many nature centers and landowners that will want to talk to you about it. It's a horrible plant. And it's so beautiful that everyone's like, I want in my yard, and we're like, no.
Does it have a blue?
It has, it's a very, very shiny yellow. It's so attractive. Yeah, it's so attractive. Yeah.
It's in bloom, there's some actually out on the lawn out here.
Oh, it's,
And it's also filled up, the nature preserve down at upstream. It's all-
yeah, I don't know. I mean, every park district is struggling with lesser celandine. Yeah.
So I have two comments from our Zoom friends.
Yes.
One is Leanne Fulford is gladly welcoming anybody to come and get her sweet gumballs.
Okay.
And she wrote in big letters, they are free.
Awesome.
Then we have another question is, can you please repeat the name of the window screen you use for vent fragile?
Oh, yes, it's called Acopian, ACCOPIAN Bird Savers. And you can either make your own, they're really expensive. They use paracord, right? Or you can buy them, but I mean, it hardly took any time to make them. And I use a dark green, and they just look like little strings that hang from the window. I thought it would be, get in the way, and but they're right in the windows that we do the bird watching from, and you get used to them. So we have them across our whole front desk, whole front of the house. Plus, I put them on our French doors because the birds still came underneath. I've got a Phoebe and some titmice and occasional nuthatch that want to try and steal the cat food that's outside.
They're inside. So they're inside.
No, they're actually outside. Yeah. Oh, they'd be a great cat toy. Yeah.
I just thought it was a great talk and a ton of good information. On the bird, helping protecting the birds. I didn't see, maybe you didn't mention, I missed it about lights out and bird migration.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That should be on there. So Lights Out is a really important program that it's not happening here in Dayton, but it's really big actually, like in Chicago and Cleveland, New York. So when birds fly, so if someone calls you a bird brain, you should say, thank you very much. Because birds, how else could you fly from one circle of the earth to the other, and without having a map or GPS, right? They use landmarks. Some say they use magnetics in their brains, but they memorize the landmarks. And when lights are shining at night, it distracts them and confuses them to the point that even some birds like loons, who actually are completely on water, if a loon would land on the ground, it actually could not get back up again. And it will confuse them, and they won't know the way. They could hit buildings and glass. So typically we buildings, especially with lights that are inside, are a major problem, like tall buildings. But even if you have an outside home where the lights are up, think about changing them so the lights go down. During migration season, I actually turn off our outside lights, or just one little spot, but let's start with someone, right?
Does it affect bats too?
It can affect bats as well. Yes, absolutely. Yes, because a lot of people don't realize that not only do butterflies migrate, but dragonflies migrate as well. Yeah. Anyone ever seen those big groups of dragonflies in the fall? Yeah, they're coming together to migrate.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Popped up, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right. When did the yellow vest black come from?
Where did the what?
The yellow pest, and then she said BLABT.
Did she mean the lesser celandine, do we think? Where did it come from?
I have a feeling that's what yes.
So it's my understanding lesser celandine has its roots in Europe. But I don't know for sure where, and it's possible because it was so attractive that gardeners put it in their gardens. And so this was a beautiful ground cover, and then it went wild. So, I mean, a lot of, house sparrows aren't native to, the United States. They were brought here, from Europe, which is ironic because house sparrows are actually considered endangered over in Europe, but not here. I'd love to ship them back. So yeah,
Okay, and then I have one more, and then I'm gonna shut off our questions.
okay.
Any suggestions of breeding homes of pigeons without harming doves?
Oh, so, that's really, really hard. There is a very humane, animal removal, company called Barnes Pest Control. They're the ones that we use, that Bruckner uses when we have to remove animals. I don't know exactly what the situation is. I mean, like, are they nesting? Are they hanging out? I mean, people have tried those spiky things. I've seen them be a fail for that sort of thing. We just got to remember that we brought pigeons. We created them to race and carry messages and things like that. They've adapted amazingly to urban areas. They're actually really smart birds. So if we can find a way to live with them, that would be great, but it is hard. I mean, like a weed, unwanted bird can be a nuisance. And sometimes they can cause damage to our homes as well. And so we have to make some decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any last questions? Because I know we've gone over. Okay.
Donna? We have.
I was gonna ask about the books. Go ahead.
Yes, so those were given, I'm not quite sure the lovely women.
I think from Siebenthaler.
Siebenthaler, yes, those are free if anyone would like one.
It's a wonderful book about Marie's home and the history. Yeah, it's called A Place Called Aullwood. So if you
Yeah,
don't
so-
have that,
So
one of
please
them's
take one if you like one.
yeah.
Yeah, Nenita, thank you so much. This showed. It took a lot of research and time. This is the very first time she's given this presentation, and we really appreciate you doing that. for
Well,
us.
thank you so much for coming out and sharing the afternoon with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah, lots of great questions.